Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and I am a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this is a video about the new moon in Pisces taking place on February 20th, 2023 at 2:05 a.m. if you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States. Very exciting energy. Still lots of energy from change about change from the last time we were together at the last lunation. We have the new moon in Pisces, the final new moon of the last zodiac cycle right here. And the two sun and moon, that's what creates a new moon when they sit together. Sun and moon are also sitting together with Saturn. And except for that conjunction to Saturn, this lunation, the moon is mostly unaspected directly. She's not receiving any trines. She's not receiving any oppositions. She's not receiving any major squares or sextiles from any of the other planets. There is a there's an energy here of Saturn being the ruling piece of this conversation. And because Saturn is so dominant in this conversation, we've got just a little bit of connection here to creation goddess and south node. But as you know, those are not major planetary players, certainly influential, but not one of the major ones. So it behooves us to really understand, okay, well, what's the mythology here around Saturn and his relationship here to the creation goddess and to the south node? There's some the mythology of Saturn is extraordinarily potent with this particular new moon. So I'm going to give you kind of the overview of the story, and that way it'll allow your intuition to kick in and to help you piece together the mirrors in your life around what this may mean for you. And then I'll kind of go into some additional interpretation. So just so you understand, creation goddess is what she represents, what it sounds like she represents the capacity to create. South node represents closures, endings, things from the past, portals, and completions. Now, Saturn here is the restorer of integrity, the one that brings things back into wholeness. So, of Gaia's original children, and there were many children, several really main ones that she had on her own. She didn't need a partner to co-create them. She created these kids by herself. And of these particular ones, Saturn was given dominion over order, time, sequencing of events. Saturn was given the opportunity to open and close cycles. He was the one that dictated when leaves fell, when blooms blossomed. And so this was the way things went for some time. Gaia got lonely and she created for herself a lover. And just like she's a place, her lover was a place. And her lover, instead of populating her body, was someone who wrapped all the way around her and provided her comfort. And these two made love, beautiful love, for a long time until one day the co created children of theirs came out with 100 hands. And her lover looked at those children and thought they were an abomination, that they didn't deserve to exist. So he began in earnest to attempt to shove and push Gaia's babies back into her. Now, you don't ever have to have witnessed a child being born or given birth to understand that if the womb is pushing out the child and you're pushing in the opposite direction, any woman in that state is liable to put you in a very compromising position because you're compromising her body so deeply. And that's precisely what happened. You're in Gaia called out to her original children and she said, "Hey, I need someone to help me. My lover is harming me." Saturn was the one to answer, and Saturn said, "Okay, what do you need me to do, Mom?" And she looked at him and said, "I need you to castrate him." And from that point forward, Saturn got the reputation as being the harsh teacher, the disciplinarian, the separator. Now, that's only if we look at this story from the perspective of the male gaze, right? If we only look at this from a patriarchal lens. But if there's two other lenses in the circumstance, Saturn's perspective and then there's Gaia's perspective. What Saturn gave to Gaia in that moment was the opportunity to be safe from harm, restored to her natural condition, which is one of birthing and producing and fertility and so forth. And so when Saturn took the action that Saturn took from the matriarchal gaze, from the female lens, what we actually have is an opportunity to be restored to wholeness. Now, if we look at this from Saturn's gaze, the third entity here, because there were three entities in this story, right? Saturn acted in the role of the obedient son, the one who wanted to act on behalf of, protect, and serve, the one who had the creative power. And so now we see Saturn having this conversation at a new moon, at the final sign of the zodiac, meaning closing out a cycle. New moons represent new beginnings, but it's a new beginning in the last sign, meaning we are at the beginning of an ending of a cycle. And here is Saturn conjunct this new moon saying, "Hey, let's restore some wholeness here. Let's restore some integrity here. Anything in your life that has been compromising you, stopping you from being best you, fullest you, most self-expressed you, these things at this time will find themselves castrated and separated from you." Now, Saturnian energy here would very easily, it's not, Saturn doesn't even have to work very hard because Pisces dissolves things anyway, and there's the sun and the moon in Pisces speaking harmoniously to the south node, which can act like a giant suction portal, a giant vacuum that will suck out things that are not serving us. And because this is a trine, meaning there's no obstruction to the energy flow between Saturn, Moon, and Sun and the South Node here, what we have is basically a large portal, black hole, if you will, where anything that has been undermining our capacity to be exactly what we were created to be just gets sucked right through and has the opportunity to exit our lives at this time. So it's a beautiful gift. It's a beautiful energy. Saturn, for some people, like I said, has been known to be the harsh teacher. But that's when we have noticed the beats of the story there, when we've had the insistence that we have our way with someone else's body, someone else's circumstance, someone else's way of being. When we get attached to what someone else is going to do, and that's exactly what happened, right? We had Gaia's lover being attached to what their co-created children look like, and then wanting to dictate to Gaia what her body would and would not do. That attachment cost her lover greatly. And so this is a moment in time where, again, I have said this in previous lunar updates, if something's going, it's a great time to let it go. rather than holding on and having your fingers or hand get taken with whatever's going through this vacuum, this black hole to, be dissolved. Notice they're in Scorpio, creation goddess, and we have South Node in Scorpio. Scorpio is the sign of endings, completions, and that cycle of resurrection. And so, whatever's closing at this time, this is the perfect time to just say, thank you, Saturn. Thank you, God. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Thank you, Gaia. Thank you, ancestors. Right? Thank you, Allah. Thank you, Great Mother. Thank you, Great Father, for removing anything that has stopped me from being the best me that I can be. Now, granted, like I said, some of us have real attachments to holding on to certain things. But at this moment, if something is closing, if something is ending, if something is being severed, I really want to let you know it's for the best for now. And that there will be at the appropriate time, because Scorpio here promises it, that's its nature. There will be a process for resurrection. There will be a process for Phoenix, because that's the Scorpionic cycle. It is death, it is afterlife and or integration, and then it is rebirth. That regenerative cycle is what Scorpio governs. So anything that's flowing out during a Scorpionic cycle, which this is in part one of, you don't have to worry, oh, it's the final end and it's forever, especially if you're attached. Just trust that for this time, for reasons that maybe you don't even see, it's compromising your wholeness and your integrity to be all of what you were created to be. And for now, heavens, the sky, they are saying, let that go. When there are other tools in place, other abilities in place, other ways to have the conversation in place, there will be an opportunity for revisitation. But at this time, what's best is to release. Okay. Now, because the creation goddess is so featured here, she's right there at the 0-degree mark of Scorpio, Hawaiian creation goddess Haumea. And we have here sun and moon here at the 1st degree of Pisces, water to water influencing one another. Scorpio talking about completions and transmutation. Pisces talking about spiritual growth and connection to our spiritual selves. There's a vibe here of releasing either completed creations or creations that got started but never got fulfilled. So either we made it and it's done, the thing that we created, and it's time to move on to the next thing, or we got halfway, but life's moved on. The scene has changed. The timing has changed. The season has changed. We've changed. So it's time to let go of our old creations, creation goddess. It's time to give them over to life, South Node and Scorpio, for the process of reintegration. So when it's time for it to be reborn, it can be. Now, with this, because it's a trine and Saturn is so incisive, right? There's really not a lot of effort involved in whatever's completing right now. This is a bit of a culminating energy since the new moon is in Pisces, meaning the process has been going on for a little while. And this step here is just the final moment of closure. It's the energy of, yes, I've been working to get my house sold for a really long time. Finally found a buyer. We were back and forth for a whole lot. And now I'm finally giving them the keys. We're signing the paperwork. It's a wrap. This is the energy of, I've been working really hard on a health issue for a long time. And now I'm finally getting relief. It's a wrap, right? It's that kind of energy where there's been movement around whatever's closing at this time for some time. And now it's just the final steps of the change and transformation. Note here at this lunation, the extraordinary high amount of water and mutability. There's a lot of activity going on in water signs. It would be hard to fight the tides in this energy. Trust that if something's organically completing, that it's exactly what was supposed to happen for now. Whatever the tides take out, that's Pisces. The tide always does come back in. It's imperative to trust and lean into faith. That's also Pisces. If something's meant to manifest again in the new cycle, it will on its own. Trust that anything departing is a matter of restoring us to wholeness. And this is a great thing. The gift in this is that Saturn knows what we look like in our wholest, highest, best self a lot more than we do. Sometimes we might get hinged or stuck on a limitation in who we are. But the heavens, the sky, God's stars here, they know, they see the full picture, even if we can't. And the only thing that would be going is something that if it were to stay, it would continue to undermine. So this releasing may be a little bit of a process, even though it's a culmination, like I said. This chapter of closing may include just a little bit of back and forth. Like I said, there's a lot of mutable energy here. And so with mutable seasons, the mutable seasons and the mutable signs, I'll just point them out. So what I'm talking about here is one of the modes. We have three main modes in astrology: cardinal, fixed, mutable. The modes, which are different than the elements, fire, earth, air, and water, the modes here talk about how we respond to life. Cardinal energy's response to anything thrown at it is great. What can I make? What can I do? What can I take initiative around? Fixed energy is great. What can I stabilize? What can I hold? What can I shore up? Mutable's energy is great. What can I change? What can I shift? How can I transform, shape shift in this? So because there's a significant amount of mutable energy here, and the mutable seasons, Pisces season, Gemini season, Virgo season, Sagittarius season, the four mutable signs govern the switch from one season to the next. Now, in the Northern Hemisphere, Pisces gives us the switch from the tail end of winter to the very beginning of spring. Same with Gemini going forward. Gemini gives us the switch from the tail end of spring to the very beginning of summer. It's that shape-shifting quality where one week you might have weather from spring. The next week you may have winter weather. Then the following week you may have spring weather again. And then the following it's winter. And then 3 weeks of spring weather. And then one gigantic snowstorm before it's fully spring. You see how mutability goes back and forth. It shape shifts. It doesn't push you into the new. It bobs and weaves, zigs and zags its way there. So because there's a significant amount of mutable energy in this particular closing cycle, in this particular moment, what's interesting about this is that there may be a bit of a process and back and forth before we fully settle into our new season. And so this may feel, and I've been talking about this as we've spoken about the lunations of this year so far, the last 2 or 3 in particular. The feeling to this is a sense of bittersweetness. It's a sense of that kind of graduation energy where The people you've spent the last 4 or 5 years with, they've got to go their way and you've got to go yours. Everyone's got bright horizons in front of them. And the only way to prolong this moment would be to sabotage the new beginning, meaning find some kind of way to get held back in school, to fail out, to repeat the grade, right? That's the only way that this energy would be used unconstructively. So all of that to say the bittersweetness in this may be very real. And if you're feeling that, just, know that my heart goes out to you. You know, in our humanness, growth can feel very confronting because our human creature likes stability, but our spiritual nature craves evolution. And this is a moment where our divinity has the opportunity to take the wheel and allow us to move through the process. This may be a time of self reflection, of quiet, with so much water energy here. This may be a time that comes with a tad bit of grief and loss as we carry forward into our new beginnings, which are truly already well underway. See the stack of energy here in Aries, got Vesta representing dedication, Jupiter there representing faith, hope, and optimism, Chiron representing our capacity to step into leadership, Juno about partnership and marriage and collaboration. We've got Eris there who's reminding us, hey, here's where we need to make sure we include ourselves with a seat at life's table. Okay. And so Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It represents that new beginning. It's the first sign of spring in the northern hemisphere. It's the opportunity for blossom. It's that first, it's the first energy of, hey, the sun is coming up over the horizon. And so, even though there's this closing energy at the new moon in Pisces, we've also got a ton of energy here in Aries. And so, as we've marched toward this new moon, you may have found there's just been a level of purge in your life that you just recognize, I got to clean out these closets. I have to make room for something new. I can't keep doing what I was doing. I can't keep having what I was having. There can be a real clarity because Aries does have a knack for seeing things kind of in a black and white, almost naive kind of way. There can be a real clarity to, oh, well, if I want to move into, owning, XYZ amazing vehicle, duh, I have to sell the one I've got. And so there's probably been this movement already of detoxing, purging, clearing, making way, because the new has been kind of forcefully placing itself in our awareness. That part has been yanking, pulling, poking, prodding, shoving, pushing us into our next chapter. And this is just a little bit of a final close to that. Okay. So I like this energy. I think it's very exciting. You may feel more excitement than bittersweetness, which, is always great if we can greet new beginnings and closings with optimism. If we can feel prepared, like we're ready for the new and the next, that's always awesome. Okay. But if you're not feeling altogether that happy go lucky about it, it's okay. When we have significant amounts of energy and water, especially if you are a water and or an earth sign, you may find that you may feel it's easy to get emotionally flooded when there's a lot of planetary activity and water signs. Just feel a little misty, a little weepy, but also start having very deeply spiritual dreams. You may find you get a lot of channeled transmission in your deeper connections to the divine and your higher power during this period of time. You may get lots of clarity about your path forward and where you need to be. Please be paying attention to your dreams with so much energy in Pisces. And for those of you who are artists of any form, writers, singers, actors, any type of creator, creating art in the world, it's a great time to really play with your visions and leverage this energy in a creative way, releasing what you've already created and stepping into blank slate, blank canvas. What do I want to create next? And let the muse move you. So that's really exciting. Listen, if you want to have a conversation about new beginnings in your chart as we get more fully into Aries season, like I said, that's the first sign of the zodiac. It's the first sign of the new astrological cycle. This stellium in Aries is going to be a don't quit kind of stellium. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets here now, but it's going to be at least 7 before we finished with this, and not all at the same time, but the Sun, Moon, and Mercury haven't, and Venus still have to move through Aries. And so it's going to be an action-packed kind of Aries season, with Jupiter and Juno having met up there as well, and Chiron being there as well, because all 3 of them aren't normally there in addition to these others. So if you want to have a look at it and what the new cycle means to you, find me over at kmoonastro.com. Been talking about it quite a bit in the previous lunar updates, that this particular new cycle is bringing in a new love cycle, especially for all of us here on Earth. And this new cycle is helping us to be a part of our own manifestation, our own creation, by getting invested in the ambition and the dreams that the divine has placed in our hearts. Super exciting time. Link to book is right below this video. Would love to look at the year ahead with you. Now let's talk about this news some more, shall we? You may have heard the phrase, the universe abhors a vacuum, that no space is ever left completely empty or void. So as the decks are getting cleared, the universe has been step by step filling in the gaps with something new for us, a new scene in the play of our lives. And so there's overlap where the moon is going down and the sun is coming up, but neither is fully established, and our eyes are adjusting at dawn. We've got Pluto almost in Aquarius, but not quite, 1 degree more after a 14-year stretch here in Capricorn. We've got Pluto coming to land in Aquarius. Last time Pluto changed signs, it moved into Capricorn in 2008. Lots of significant transformations around finances at that point, as Capricorn governs institutions. We've got more of those on the horizon as we have Pluto moving into Aquarius. Okay, not quite there, but is on its way. We'll talk more about what this will mean as we get to that next lunar update. We also have Saturn almost in Pisces. And with Saturn almost in Pisces, not quite there, 2 degrees left to go. Saturn has been in Aquarius for 2.5 years. Saturn arrived here in January of 2021. Hard to believe time's flown that past, but that's preparing us to ground our dreams. We've got Jupiter already in Aries, got here in January, and that's expanding our optimism and our capacity to get after it when it comes to our unique ambitions. Now, all 3 of these, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, entering new signs within 90 days of each other like this is a very rare energy. This does not happen very often at all. And it gives us the chance to make big breakouts given how slowly they all move. The fastest moving one is Jupiter, and Jupiter takes a year, right, to get through a sign and into the next one. So one of the things that, this new energy is talking about, especially at this lunation, we've got some conversations going on around love and money. They're also highlighted here with Venus. She represents love, money, beauty, value, things that we value and care for. Venus is sextiling Pluto. Okay. And with Venus as close as she is to Jupiter, the expander, there's strong chemical, romantic pull in the air. I'm going to be honest, because Pluto is so heavily featured in the mix. This is mostly sexual, not going to lie. And with Venus as close as she is to Jupiter, like I said, it's chemical, it's romantic. There's a pull in that way. It's mostly sexual. There's a lot of momentum here for healing. The vibe of it, I'm going to be real transparent. The vibe of it that I'm getting, because we don't have Saturn strongly positioned to either one, Venus or Jupiter. Saturn is what brings that commitment, that stick and stay, right? We have a lesser one, that's Vesta, but Saturn is the one that really, when something's right, will establish putting a ring around it, literally, and putting it into commitment level. And because Saturn is well positioned to the moon, but the moon itself isn't well positioned to any of these love chemistry kind of planets. This energy, to me, as an astrologer, it reads a little bit more like one night standy. It reads a little bit like a star-crossed lover's tryst. It reads a bit like a deep bond, but it's a one night only kind of thing. Like, I met this person, we saw each other from across the room, our eyes locked, and we both just knew. And then we went home together and went our separate ways in the morning. And neither one of us saw one another ever again. Like, it's that kind of energy. Now, could anything in this energy evolve and become more? Yes. Will it? We'll see. The key would be this: because Saturn is so sharply focused to the moon and the sun at this time, since Saturn is like the governing body of this lunation, anything that starts under here needs to be of Saturnian caliber, meaning, is it aligned to our highest self? Is it going to let us be best self, most self-expressed self, non-repressed self? Is it going to allow us to operate in our wholeness and integrity? Now, if it does, then great. Saturn's already got his foot on the gas, as well as Jupiter and Venus and Pluto. But if it doesn't, Saturn's also got his foot on the brake and is like, nope, that's going out the South Node portal. That was cute, and it's gone. So that's kind of the way this energy will work. I really like seeing Vesta here for those of you who are looking for some form of like commitment or things to move in some way. Sitting between Jupiter and Venus, she lends herself to dedication. And the trine with Lilith here, a harmonious aspect to Lilith, I like to see that as well. Because Lilith will yield a large amount of unapologetic authenticity to the conversation. So, you and another person may come together kind of cataclysmically, or like, just magnets across the room, maybe not cataclysmically, magnets across the room. There's a real kind of like, I never said anything like this to anyone else before, kind of all of a sudden, all at once kind of energy. It's deep, it's fast, it's sexy. It's that kind of vibe to it. We'll see if it's the right thing for you. If it's not, it'll very quickly fall apart and dissolve on its own in this energy. If it is, you'll also start to see, as this energy continues to evolve, it's going to move in a really beautiful way. And I'll even have a look at this at first look at the tail end of this video. Some of you know, if you're new here, welcome. Subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and hit that like button. At the end of these videos, I do something called First Look, where I fast forward 2 weeks into the future and have a look at where the energy progresses from here. So we'll have a look at this. Got my eye on it. We'll have a look at this together. Okay. Let's see. What else do my notes say about this energy? Yeah, okay. I do like seeing that Lilith though, because Lilith lending herself to that unapologetic authenticity is exactly what would be needed for something to get established under a sky with so much Aries energy. Aries is really drawn to authenticity. It lives, breathes, and thrives in it. Anything that's, very much, unapologetically you, straight, no chaser, no subterfuge, no veil. That kind of energy is well supported here. And so if you're coming into a connection in that way at this time, you're going to find that there's a lot of astrological support to take it further. Okay. Mars is sextile Venus. Let's see our friend Mars here. Here he is. Here's this Venus. Sextile the Venus Vesta Jupiter energy. Sorry for coughing in your ear like that. So the sextiling energy is an angle of 60 degrees for my star schoolers who are working through this stuff. And that 60 degrees kind of energy, the sextile will provide benefit, but it's beneficial if we're willing to work for it. It's not like the trine where things just kind of magnetically are influenced or drawn together. The sextile is like, oh, I got to make a little bit of effort, but it can still go really well. Okay. And then that curious and exploratory placement of Mars in Gemini, Mars is ambition, Gemini is that curiosity, that exploration. It provides a quick start to any love related new beginnings in aspect to that Venus, Vesta, and Jupiter configuration. And it's a quick start. And if we're just willing to put in a little bit of effort, be authentically ourselves, have conversations and dialogue, things could really move here. It's a little bit of an energy of a strong start. And with Mars speaking to Chiron the way he is, it could very quickly, depending upon how evolved the people involved are. Mars speaking to Chiron, there's Mars here. Here's this Chiron. Again, Mars is motivation to do Gemini things, curiosity, conversation, openness, and explore. Here's Chiron, though, hanging out in Aries. Chiron talking about having us all explore the places where we don't really feel like we're enough. Aries being the sign of self. So these two are in harmony, having a conversation. It's a little bit of an energy, like I said, with Mars, strong start, but people's efforts may not be all that consistent, especially if their wounds and triggers are up in the wake of the ending energy that's simultaneously unfolding. Quite literally, for some, this is getting into new love or physical connection while not really being out of the last thing. I hate to use the word messy, but that's, let me see if I can find another word. It's the energy of no closure, but straight up moving forward and opening other things. No closure from the last thing, but still moving into other things. And so for some people, it's, I'm going to say tread carefully, ask good questions, especially if you're getting involved with anything financially right now. You want to make sure you read the fine print. You want to ask really good questions. Don't just assume because you know the person that this is a smart deal. Don't just assume that because you've done it before that this is going to work this time. It's like I said, there's this overlap of ending and beginning. We've got this movement of Pluto shaking things up in the financial sector as well. If anyone comes to you kind of like magnetically across the room, just make sure you double check. Like, are you actually single? Like, are you technically divorced or just separated and living in the basement of the house that the two of you bought together and sometimes still sleeping together? Like, there can be a lot of that kind of energy here, like wanting to feel better by like clinging on to the new and not really trying to focus on the old, and vice versa, wanting to feel better by clinging to the old, putting our head in the sand to the new, and like gripping. So there's an opportunity here, which is one of the shadow sides of mutable energy. And the shadow energy, it's using the shape shifting to not have to deal with reality, right? It's using the fact that you can become anything in any room at any time to avoid needing to be a full self, a congruent self, a whole self, an authentic self. And so, while that's certainly in the realm of possibility here, good conversation, good clarity, good communication, great authenticity. Like, here's the fine print, here's the hook, here's the thing about me that you ought to know up front. Any of that kind of conversation will lend itself to bonds deepening at this time and getting the best from other people around you at this time. Any kind of that transparency, because God bless an Aries, but one of their gifts or faults, love them or hate them, is that their transparency will just, sometimes their foot's in the mouth just a little bit. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. At least with an Aries, you always know where you stand, right? You don't have to guess with an Aries what's what. And so if you can present yourself in that way in your circumstances or anything you're getting into with somebody else, ask them the right questions so that information shows up in love or money, you're going to find that you navigate through this energy with a lot more mastery. Okay. Again, the major question under this lunation is always, is it in alignment? Is this in alignment for me? Is this going to make me be a stronger, better, more self-expressed and whole version of myself? Okay. So yeah, I'm loving this. I like this energy. I'm a person who really appreciates the new. So yeah, if you want to have a look at how all this works for you, then by all means, jump on my calendar. Got some time coming up here as this new energy comes into full fruition. It's going to move like a freight train down the tracks in the next 2 weeks. You want to book some time to look at where this is headed for you. By all means, you know where to find me. I'm at kmoonastro.com, link below this video. Let's have a look now at the full moon in Virgo, which I think is what's next. If you want to hang out for that, see how this energy evolves, I'll give you my first insights and opinions as I look at that chart. One moment. Well. Remember when I was saying that we were going to have a lot of energy moving through Aries? Here it is. It's more and more energy stacked in Aries, and I'd love to see it. Okay, here we have the sun in Pisces, the moon in Virgo. That creates a full moon, a sun opposite moon in astrology. Let's just see who's talking to this moon in Virgo. Got moon in Virgo, 16 degrees. So she's right mid distance. She's getting about a little bit of a square here from Mars in Gemini. We've got a trine from Uranus and Taurus. All this Aries energy is in conjunct However, we've got Nessus directly opposite and connecting to the sun. Oh boy, that's going to make things interesting. Um, mm, all right. And yeah, okay. Well, let me give this a think. What does this all mean? We've got Pallas. She's having a minor conversation. She's sextile. Well, the most influential is Uranus because the degrees are exact here. Uranus is the most influential planet. They're close to exact. They're only 1 degree away from the trine. So, with Uranus as the most influential planet, this is movement in the third dimension because these are earth signs, Uranus in Taurus, Moon in Virgo. This is movement in the third dimension that allows us to become a physical Taurus expression of our emotions, Moon, and the transformative process that we've been going through and undergoing. And so, Mars square Moon can bring two different types of energy from Gemini because Gemini is duality. There can be straight up hesitation, there can be running forward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, net effect, 1 step forward. And the Palace energy makes us extraordinarily protective of our emotions. Wow. So, a Nessus talking to the moon brings in Nessus is the energy of rumination and overthinking. And sitting with Sun, which is our ego structure, but opposite our emotional structure and reality. Oh, I think we're about to see people's inner selves on the outside. Is the best way that I can put what I'm seeing here. And what I mean by that is in an energy like this, especially when there's so much Aries energy in the sky and manifesting for all of us, there's an inability to hide in this energy. There's an inability to be someone we are not. There's an inability to showcase ourselves as one way on the outside, but a different way on the inside. This is kind of like sudden revelation of true nature in certain ways with people around us and our own true nature being inescapably visible to other people. Now, because people, I just see what one mouth. I wish I could just like give you the full, like I can't wait for the date in the future. No, actually, I really can. But like when the concept comes through to me and I could just like place it in your head as like a download for you. Because I'm trying to get my words to keep up with the speed at which my brain is moving and looking at this energy. And it's not going smooth. So, what I'm seeing here with Sun Nessus and Pisces is a fascination with kind of how we present ourselves to the world and the image we portray. And with Virgo moon, there's this recognition that I can kind of be anything I want to be. I can shapeshift, both of them mutable energies. However, the Virgoan energy opposite Nessus, because the opposition brings tension, it brings challenge, it brings a bit of strife, it brings the shadow out of both of them. Shadow side of the moon there is a bit moody. And then Nessus and Pisces speaking to the sun has us in our feelings about everything. And with this square to Mars, there's this like, I got to act on it. I just can't I can't sit still. I can't not do something, but I got to take an action. But because Mars is in Gemini and still in the shadow of his retrograde activity that he took last year, November, December, and January of this year, there's this energy of like, I got to do something. I got to work with it. I got to get it out of me. But there's still a little bit of like, but which way do I go? And so you may see from people and even from yourself, this kind of like, I'm acting on this and then I'm acting on that. Like, I'm trying to be in the new, but I'm also in the old. I'm trying to wrap that up and I'm trying to start this new thing. There's this little bit of like, it's like a stuck energy, the visual that's coming through. I want you to imagine two like trapeze artists, right? One person on one bar and they're swinging and they need to get to the next bar, or monkey bars, even, right? You're swinging and you got to go from one bar to the next bar. This energy reads a lot like, okay, I'm grabbing the next bar, but I'm not letting go of this bar. And now I'm just stuck. There's no momentum, even though there's impetus to act. Ooh, so I see Uranus's energy here like, not to worry, I got you. I'm going to bring in some hand of the divine, cataclysmic, evolutionary energy to force you in the right direction. So I do see there could be some real surprises in the third dimension with this energy, some things that kind of come out of nowhere that clarify your direction and instigate you letting go of what needs to be let go of so you can move on with where life is trying to and your soul is trying to evolve you. Expect emotions to run high. Expect your own emotions in your own head to operate in a way that is full of like discomfort because you want to protect yourself and not get hurt in the process of exploring something new, being on a new frontier. But here's the deal about being an explorer on a new frontier. In the new and the unknown spaces, what we all find is that we're exposed. We're exposed to the elements. We don't have the creature comforts of an established location, right? The heat, the hot water, the plumbing hasn't all been installed on the new frontier. There's probably not a grocery store. We don't have the benefit of years of planting and seed and soil. We actually have to create it all. And so I was listening to Tony Robbins the other day, and he was saying the bigness of your life, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but the bigness of your life is directly proportionate to how much discomfort you can handle. The only limitation on our dreams is our capacity to handle uncertainty. And so if you can hang out in the clarity that something new is happening, and the deciding that you're moving in the new direction, because remember, all of this Aries energy, it's the beginning, first sign of the zodiac. It's the newness, it's the uniqueness, it's the initiation. You can anchor yourself in this energy here. Notice Aries is in conjunct, meaning a non-conversation to the moon. If you can hang out in Aries energy, I'm just focused on what's new. I'm focused on what's next. I'm focused on my ambition, my dreams. I'm focused on driving forward. I'm focused on taking action. If you can leverage and harness that energy and get out of being focused on what was, how you look to other people, what they think about you, right? If you just get focused on the new and the next, you'll find that this energy passes with relative calm. I'm so glad we got to do this together because honestly, this energy does look like it may sneak up on some people. And in doing so, you can get caught in rumination or you can stay focused, eyes on the horizon, feet and hands on the next action that's going to carry you to the new. If you can just stay focused there, you're going to find that this energy passes with minimal discomfort. You don't need to be focused on the big picture. We all just need to be focused on the step right in front of us and just taking that step. As long as we're doing that, as we hit the full moon in Virgo, as we close out February and roll into March, we're going to be in good shape. All right, Master Creators Incarnate. It's so fun to do this with you every lunation. Want to book some time? You know where to find me over at kmoonastro.com. Take great care and bye for now.